There seem to be quite some big differences between playing Hogwarts Legacy on 30 FPS and 60 FPS, so I want to go over that, which also an answer to one of the many questions you could leave in the comments of my Hogwarts Legacy hands-on video. So I thought it was fun to do a sort of Q&A where I answer the questions that you left under that video, touching on romance, if a certain spell's in the game, will you like this if you don't like Harry Potter, and way more. Of course, if you are hyped or curious about Hogwarts Legacy, then leaving a like will really show your support. Subscribe for way more content on the game, and you can check out our Digital Deluxe Edition giveaway if you are a subscriber of the channel via the link in the pinned comment. And with that out of the way, let's go. Shalom Production got a question saying, please tell me I can put red eyes in the character creation. And well, there are actually colors that are close to it, as we've seen footage here from WizardPhD. I don't think there's like a vampire red, sadly. We did not have all the time in the world to check every option of the character creator, but I did select every hairstyle myself. There are 50 in total, and also every hair color. There are quite a lot of them. Now, there should be a barber in Hogsmeade for if you want to change your hair later, but I'm not sure about the other character features. While you can, of course, change your outfit at any time in the inventory menu. Kenneth asks if the Patronus spell is in the game, which of course the defensive charm you channel by thinking of positive emotions. This will then summon a spirit guardian based on an animal, which will keep the Dementors away. And well, the answer to this is very likely no. So while we did see Dementors in the first trailer for the game, we haven't seen them since. Like, maybe there's still a visit to Azkaban at some point in the game, but I personally think they will like flesh this out even more later on and kind of save it so they still have something big to explore if there will be a second game. And if we look at all the unlockable spells in the game that I could see during my demo, I don't see an icon here for the Patronus charm. Also, while you can transport your Hogwarts house choice and your personal wand you can make on the Harry Potter fan club website, the Patronus you can create on that site as well does not transfer over to Hogwarts Legacy. So I don't think Expecto Patronum will be in Hogwarts Legacy, but I think that means they just got some cool stuff to explore in the inevitable second game, which I totally think will happen. If you are, by the way, curious about that Wizarding World account thing, the Harry Potter fan club, which also gives you in-game items for when the game releases, then totally check out our how to prepare for launch video, which I will link to in the video description. Here we also talk about the variable refresh rate that is in Hogwarts Legacy. Jake was curious about that, and also the PC requirements, which was also a question. KRLQ is curious about the performance. Like, for one, it was a very stable build that I played. It already seemed like the full game to me. I was of course playing on PS5 just like everyone else, and good to know is that there are two graphics modes, which of course also the case for Xbox Series X and S. Fidelity mode, which targets 30 FPS, and performance mode, which targets 60 FPS. And while some people, including Raconteur and Expecto Go, were able to check out the game in the 60 FPS mode, while I could only play on the 30 FPS fidelity mode. And this was fine, by the way. I always go for 60 FPS if I get the choice, but I also think that if you never played a particular game in 60 FPS, only 30 FPS, that you will not really know what you're missing until you go for that higher frame rate. At no point I was like, oh, I can't play this, it's unplayable in 30 FPS, but after seeing the 60 FPS gameplay, especially the combat, I do think I will go for the performance mode during my full playthrough, although it has pros and cons. Expecto Go and I both have great sense of style as we picked the same green cape, and I already thought the cloth physics looked great in 30 FPS, but it's way more smooth in 60 FPS, and overall the flying feels way faster on that performance mode. Now, of course, do lose a lot of graphical quality. You notice it a bit in the character conversations, like if you're able to watch this video on a big screen, you will especially notice that the character on the left in the fidelity mode is way sharper, has way more detail going on than the character on the right in the performance mode. And I especially noticed this in the library, where I had these beautiful shadows and lights through the windows, while in the 60 FPS footage from Retro, we see nothing like this at all. It's kind of bleak. I'm not sure if the time of day had any impact on this, but it's probably the price you have to pay for the higher frame rate. Now, another thing that both Retro and Expecto Go were noticing were load times when opening a door and going to a new area in Hogwarts. Here you see Retro waiting for almost 10 seconds before the door opens, and he said that he had this a few times. Now, to be fair, I had this once on the fidelity mode as well, at the same door as Retro actually, but it only took me 2 seconds to open it, so it was way faster faster. Now maybe a day one patch will iron this out. We were of course still playing on a work in progress build, and I'm not Digital Foundry, like I can't wait for their breakdown of the multiple versions of this game, but from what we saw and we watched almost every preview, it does seem that the 60 FPS mode has longer load times than the fidelity mode. And overall, these load times kinda make me worried about the PS4 and Xbox One version. These are of course delayed to April 4th, but still, if the PS5 with an extremely fast SSD sometimes has to load in areas like this, I expect a lot of it on the older consoles, not to mention the Switch. We got a quick one from Noah asking if there are romance options in Hogwarts Legacy, and well, German outlet GamePro.de was able to ask this to the developers, and the answer is sadly no. I was hoping for this because we will of course be spending a lot of time with some companions, but it doesn't seem to be the case. So again, fingers crossed that this may be something for a future title. Gene is asking if you have to like the Harry Potter books for this game to be likable, and personally, from what I played, I would argue that this game is still great if you're just into open world RPGs. Now sure, the music, world and Easter eggs got me really nostalgic, so you will totally miss some of the magic, but I still think this game can stand on its own thanks to the quality that seems to be there and also the amount of varied content. And I also think the ranged only combat, where you're really focused on abilities, should make for a unique experience versus the melee focus we usually see in games like this. Now we of course have to wait for the reviews after playing the full version, but I think it's interesting that maybe if you never consumed any Harry Potter media at all, that by playing this game you will actually fall in love with the universe and get a completely different angle on it. Totally, if you never watched the movies or read the books but are still going to play the game, let me know after playing it what you thought of it. Marcel asks if you're able to be evil. Can you use the curse spells on students and teachers? I want to make Voldemort look like a saint. And well, the answer to this is also no. You cannot use any spells on students outside of combat. And as discussed in my previous video, it seems that students will only react to you using an unforgivable curse and probably cast judgment, but you cannot go GTA style, sadly. Now, if you want to know more about the unforgivable curses and the impact of the world around you, then check out that huge update video I did recently. I will also leave a link to that in the video description. Neo Matrix asks if your character says the spell when you do them in combat, and this is also the case. It seems to happen almost all the time, also when you just randomly cast spells out of combat.
Incendio. Lumos.
Once though, while sneaking around, my character did not always say Petrificus Totalis, only for the first enemy, but not for the two that I took out afterwards. Likely because I already said it before, but overall you will always hear it, and also when sneaking around, as I mentioned in my preview, your character will whisper the spell to not alert anyone, which I think is a really cool touch. Although, of course, after using a combat skill, you will quickly be spotted and the regular fight will begin. Mark JVP is asking, anything repetitive about it? Me and stat-based games don't necessarily get along if it's too much of a grind. Now, again, I only played 2 hours, nothing got repetitive during that time. It's like also hard to say that after 2 hours, but I think it depends on the freedom, and it seems that we can really choose a lot of activities in different orders, so you can probably make sure that you don't do the same thing all the time. Now, in terms of stats, we could not really check out the menus or the loot that dropped left and right, but from the gameplay showcases we've seen, it does seem that there are only 2 stats on the gear items so far: offense and defense, which increase if you upgrade the gear item. And next to that, you can also put traits on it that so far only seem to decrease the damage you take from certain enemies. Like, as a stat-based game lover myself, I do worry that this means that there won't be a lot of depth or variety in the playstyles based on your gear. So on the other hand, if you're not into that, I think Hogwarts Legacy might be perfect for you. I still hope that there is more to the gear and stats than what we're seeing right now. If you got more questions that I did not answer here, then you can totally leave them in the comments down below. I might answer them in the future. Subscribe for way more Hogwarts Legacy videos, of course, if you haven't already. A like would really help me out. And check out that huge update video I already mentioned, going over side quests, unforgivable curses, and other new features that were announced. For now, I will speak to you soon. Goodbye.